Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. Finally. It's been like 2 months? I don't really know what, I can't even remember when my last video was posted. I think I haven't filmed for about 2 months, but it's probably at least been about a month now since you guys have had a video. So welcome back to this channel, welcome back to this video, and we're going to be looking at some recent reads. So seeing as it has been such a long time since I have filmed, I have 2 months worth of books to show you, and that means that we are finally going to have an actual decent reading recap for June and July. The reason that there has been such a big break in my filming for a while is one of two reasons, one being slightly more at fault than the other. In July, my sister got married, and so the entire month was filled with family from overseas visiting and wedding stuff happening, and it was just too busy and too crazy that I did not have a weekend free for a solid month to sit down and make a video, so it just didn't happen. Thankfully, I did get some reading fitted in then, but I've had a lovely month off with family, doing stuff, celebrating my sister's marriage, and that's been wonderful. But then, a mere 2 weeks after everything from the wedding was wrapping up, family was going back to their respective countries, I was ready to sit down and film again and blog and all the other fun stuff, and my laptop died, which is what I edit on, so I haven't been able to post the last video that I had stored up in preparation for such a busy time. This gap has been a bit longer than it should have been because I did have another video. I just have had a broken laptop, which I will hopefully be picking up tomorrow, all fixed and brand spanking new, and everything will be fine. But that's life for you. All of that aside, let's have a look at what I did get around to reading. I've read some really good books and I'm feeling pretty happy with what I've read. I also want to do a little bit of a touch base in how my reading goals for the year in 2019 have been going, on track, whether they're on track or not, whatever, because it is well and truly midway through the year now. At present, I've read 33 out of 50 books for my reading goal, which I think puts me at 4 books ahead of my schedule for Goodreads. Now, 50 is a lower goal than what I usually do. I usually aim for about 70 or 80, but I anticipated this year being a slow reading year, and I was right. But I am ahead of schedule for that, so I'm hoping that a miracle will happen and I'll still finish with 70 books, but right now I'm looking at 54. But I'm on track, so that's good. That means that I have been reading much less than I want to per month, and if time permits, I am trying to read more and fit in more. I've got a lot of arcs that I'm really excited about that I want to get to, and some other goals that I'm trying to get accomplished, but it's really hard when you have like 4 or 3 books that you're getting through a month. One of my goals that I'm really on top of, and I think I have touched base recently on this, was reading other people's recommendations. As we will see, as it's nice and evident in this wrap up, I have been doing a really good job of that, I feel, whether that is getting onto presents that I've got from Christmas, which I got so many, I'm still working through them, or for my birthday, and other reading recommendations, particularly from Jaden, who is my boyfriend, if you don't know that. In fact, to give me some brownie points here, Jaden and I have set up a little book swap reading program that we've been doing for the last 2 months now, and it's been really exciting. I've been enjoying it. I don't know if he's been enjoying it as much, but we're doing it and it's fine. Seeing as we have quite different tastes in reading, and I really wanted to try and read some books that I wouldn't usually pick up, we decided that every month each of us would give the other a book that they really enjoyed that may be out of our comfort zone, and we read it and we give it a go and let each other know how we went. So Jaden predominantly reads sci-fi sagas, like your real classic sci-fi, and I read everything else. The first month in June, I gave him Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, and he gave me a book called Childhood's End, which I will be touching up in the wrap-up. And then in July, I read a book called The Forever War, and I've given him Maria V. Snyder's Navigating the Stars. But I will touch up on that another time. I'm thinking after a few more months have gone down and I've read a few more of these sci-fi books, I might actually do a whole video on recommendations on them. But I'm really pleased that this is happening. I think this is a great way to achieve that goal. I honestly don't remember what any of my other reading challenges were, but those are the 2 that I've been really focused on. Let's just have a look at what I read. At the beginning of June, I finished off a book called The Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho, which was part of my TBR for a readathon that I did back then, which I've already forgotten the name of, but you can have a look at my wrap-up video for that if you want to know. This one was a bit of a slower read for me. I ended up rating this 3 out of 5 stars, might have been 3.5, can't remember, and it's a bit of like an urban steampunk fantasy. That's the vibes I get from it. There's really not a lot of steampunk happening, but there's magic in Regency London, and there's 2 characters that the plot follows. It's this guy who is of coloured skin, and he he becomes like the Grand Sorcerer, which is a little bit controversial because he's not white, and he ends up sort of having this girl who also has magic tag along with him. And it's really good for diversity because women aren't allowed magic, very much so like, oh, burn the witch sort of time. So that was a really interesting dynamic to have the two of them together and explore the different types of magic that are within this world. I'm not super crazy about this story. It was a little bit of a letdown, I think. I was hoping for a bit more of something from it, but this was something that I received for Christmas, so that was a tick. I don't remember who gave it to me. However, it's been too long, but this was okay. Perhaps just wasn't the right time to read it. It just wasn't quite as spandangled as I thought it was going to be. The next book that I moved on to, though, I was super chuffed with, and that was The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi, and I was surprised by this in that I wasn't surprised, because I wasn't let down. I'd heard so many mixed reviews and a lot of people that were choosing not to rush into reading this one because I think there must have been a few overhyped readers that read the arcs of this, and I feel like a lot of people have been a bit like, not that fussed about it. Guys, this is as good as Six's Crows. This is so good and so enjoyable. It gave me a lot of vibes that were similar to Enchanté by Gita Release, if you have heard of that book, and if you liked that book. However, this one's much more, yeah, Six of Crows and that sort of grungy vibe. This follows a troupe of characters. Is it set in Paris? I can't remember anymore. I think it is. And they're trying to pull off a grand scheme and heist, and they all have their own agendas, and we have Severin, who is the leader of the pack, and they all have different abilities. So there's certain people that do have magic and others that don't, and people that are... There's an autistic character in that who I thought was done quite well, and a lot of things explained with how she deals with social situations, especially given the kind of usual camaraderie that you get in this scenario she really struggled with, and that made her a super interesting character. This book was easily a 5 out of 5 star read for me, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you are a, what should I call, a generic YA lover, you love your Sarah J Maas, you love Leigh Bardugo, you love Maria V. just all of those authors that are good fun, then you definitely need to hurry up and pick up The Gilded Wolves. This was sent to me by Pam Macmillan? This was sent to me by a publisher, I'm not 100% sure. It says Wednesday Books, that's who it's published by as the imprint, and I'm very glad that this was sent to me. The next book that I read was actually another arc. Go me, I have been really on top of my arcs. I just find it so hard to prioritise all the books that I want to read with getting on top of arcs, because even if I read 10 in a row, I've got a whole small bookshelf dedicated to my arcs now, and I am slowly making my way through them, and I'm reading quite a few per month. But that next book was The Eyes of Tampara by Maria V. Snyder, which I actually read around the time that it was published, which was a month or two ago now, and in June and July. And this was good, not amazing. I am very conflicted over this book. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. However, I was expecting 5 out of 5 stars, and I don't think it needed to be this long. Now, I have an uncorrected proof. I don't know what will change between this and the finished one. I can't imagine much, but it is a really good book. And I think if you like Maria V. Snyder's writing, this is very exciting. It's actually reminding me a bit of Unearthed by Megan Spooner and Amy Kaufman, if you like that sort of writing, which a lot of people do. That's a great comparison. But yeah, I think this book was just something really different to what I'd expected it to be. It's about this girl who is sun-kissed, which means that she has blonde hair, and I think everyone has dark skin, and having blonde hair is like, ooh, that's weird. And they usually they expose these babies. If a baby is born with blonde hair, they put them out on top of the desert and let them die. And I say on top of the desert because everyone lives in underground cities. I think it's meant to be a futuristic world where the world is sort of died, so everyone has to go underneath, and the closer to the surface you are, the poorer you are, and the further down towards the water table, which has receded, the wealthier you are. And this kingdom has been run by the Water Prince, and there's also the Hierarchical Priestess, who is like two opposing powers, and our main character, Shyla, gets caught in between everything. And this happens when her friend finds this big archaeological find, which are the Eyes of Tampara. They're stones, precious stones, and everybody is after them, but they go missing very soon after they are found, and she is blamed for it. So this whole thing has a spectacular romance, and it has some really good Sarah J Maas-esque romances in it, actually, and it was absolutely phenomenal for reading the world. The world building in this I loved. But yeah, as I said, I think this probably could have been 100 pages shorter. It was a little bit repetitive. Charlotte has a really hard time with getting anything done. She's kidnapped every second page, so I would definitely recommend this as like an easy, quick and fun read, but yeah, it caught me a little bit off guard. And this one was sent to me by Harlequin Publishing, so thank you very much for sending me this one. The next book I read, I don't have my copy of it anymore because I borrowed it from my brother, and that was Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, which was the sci-fi book that I swapped with Jaden for this month. This was interesting. It's really not the kind of writing I usually go for. It's much heavier. It's got a lot of genuine science happening in it, and it makes it hard to power through it. But it's only a 200-page book, and it's very famous in the sci-fi world and very well done. It's actually a really fascinating book that I would love to recommend to a lot of people. If you like sci-fi, you should definitely be giving this book a go. It's all about sort of the almost working towards the end of the world when these alien ships just appear over poignant cities of the world, and they stay there and they don't do anything except communicate with one ambassador who relays this information to the rest of the world, essentially. And it's all about them knowing that they're given a date when these aliens are going to come down to the planet and meet them, but they're very strict in saying that no, you can't see us for these unknown reasons. And there's all the theories that happen and why the aliens are there, what are they going to be doing, what's their purpose, where did they come from, and it sort of expands as the story goes along, and it's just this very interesting take on humankind and the future and what can happen, and I think it's bloody clever. There's a very good little plot twist about the appearances of these aliens that I really loved. I actually rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, was really good, and I think there is a TV adaptation of it which I'm really keen to watch, so I'd love to know if anyone else out there has read this, because this is such a good but different book to read. The next book that I read, I again don't have my copy of it because my mum is reading it, and that was C.G. Drew's The Boy Who Steals Houses, which was just a book that I bought. This is probably the only book in both of these months worth of reading that is one that has just been on this shelf that I've bought. It's taken me so long to play out. It's intimidating how long it's taken me to get through all of my books. But anyway, this one is written by the girl who runs Paper Fury, if you're familiar with her, and it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. This was even better in my opinion than her previous book, 1,000 Perfect Notes. It's a fantastic contemporary with an autistic character, and it's about him and his brother who is trying to keep them safe, but they've been abandoned and then they've run away because of abuse and all sorts of things like that, and they squat in people's houses when they're on holiday and when the house is empty, and that's how they get by. So it's this beautiful story about these two boys just trying to survive, and the friendships that they unexpectedly make, and how those people touch their lives and make them better or worse. So I would definitely be recommending this book. If you haven't read it yet, you haven't got a copy of it, then you need to do that. The next book I bought was a birthday present from my friend Sarah, and that was The Goddess Test by Amy Carter. This is a book I have wanted to read for such a long time, so it was really satisfying to read it. It is a retelling of Greek mythology, of the Persephone story, and I just loved it. I plowed through this book. It's not big, it's a very short story, and it's all about this girl whose mum is dying from cancer, I think, and they move to this town called Eden, and she kind of accidentally gets sucked into this almost parallel world that's happening. It's not parallel world, it's just like a weird reality that's tucked away in that city, and it's all about how she makes this deal to become the new Persephone, essentially, and the trials that she has to go through and all sorts. It's really fun. There's lots of twisty-turniness going on to try and work out what it is. I just love Amy Carter's writing. She writes really fun books. Would highly recommend checking out both this and her other series if you haven't yet, because this was good fun and I'm so pleased I read it. I can't wait to read the sequel and find out what happens next. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars, or 4.5 out of 5 stars. One of those. The next book that I read was another ARC, and this one was is my biggest surprise for this year by far. That was Toffee by Sarah Crossan. I had decided to read this because I'd heard from Kate at Paper Fury that it was a very quick read, and I wanted to boost my reading for the year, so I was very much so interested in doing that. Now this is poetry, it's written in prose, and I usually avoid these type of books like the plague, but I got sent this by Bloomsbury, and I just heard a number of good things about it, so I gave it a go, and oh my god, I loved this book. It was fantastic. This was another 4-star read for me, and I think I really enjoyed it on the back, not quite on the back of, but similar to the Boy Who Steals Houses, because it's about a girl in a similar situation to him who gets mistaken as she's run away from home by this old lady who has dementia, who thinks that she is Toffee, and she's not, her name is Allison, but she takes up this opportunity and hides in this lady's house, helps her out, is really good to her, and then just tucks herself away out of view whenever guests come over, and gets by doing this. And it's just about all the friendships that she makes, the story of this lady, and how her children have like no patience for her, which is really sad because she can't remember anything. And it's very sweet, and it has some really good self-growth, and I loved how it ended. So this was very, very quick to read, and I actually really enjoyed it in the prose. I thought it gave good emphasis to certain parts and the way that the story was told. So having gone an entire lifetime of never reading books like this, I'm now going to probably have a look at other books by Crossan and see if she's written them in prose as well and give them a go. The second last book that I read was brilliant, and it was a book it's a book I've been given last Christmas, and that was Dry by Neil Shusterman. Now, I love Neil Shusterman. I feel like I've read all of his books this year. I read Scythe and Thunderhead. I'm very excited for The Toll, which is the third book in that series, and now I have read Dry, and I'd heard some good things, but not a lot about this book, and I'm really surprised because it was really quite good. This is a really good dystopian. It's set in California, and it's all about what happens when the water runs out. So when California runs out of water, so they just turn off the taps, and it's just watching how quickly society falls apart and the measures that people go to try and get water and survive, and the numbers of people that die during this time. And it follows a girl called Alyssa, her younger brother, her neighbour, and a couple of other tag-alongs that they meet along the way, and what they do to get water and to survive. It's a brilliant read. I couldn't put it down. I haven't been this addicted to a book for a long time. This was definitely the most addictive read of this recent reads wrap up that I read, so I would be highly recommending this if you haven't read this yet. And I read this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read was my most recent book swap with Jaden, and that was The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. Now, this is a bind up of the first 3 books, so the first book is only actually this big. I think it's about 230 pages long, so it's not that big at all, but I'm actually really keen to keep reading the series for this one, or at least the second book, which follows on with the same characters, and then the third book is different characters but same sort of world. This was fascinating. Again, wasn't the quickest of reads to get through, but I really did enjoy it, even though it was a massive book to carry around with me for the whole week and a half that it took me to read it. But it is, the author fought, I think, in Vietnam, and it's all the whole book is this space take on the reflection of war and humanity and how pointless it all is, and it's so well done. This whole book is just taking almost the mickey out of why we go to war and what we do and what it's really like and how little fighting happens compared to how many people die, and it's just well worth the read. If you haven't heard of this book before, I would say it's definitely for a more mature audience, but I would say give it a go. There's a lot of sex in it, and there's a lot of really well described horrible injuries that happen in the space realm, which are very to read, but if you can stomach all of that, then this is actually really quite a good book. I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I feel like that says enough. So these were all the books that I got around to in June and July, and I am hoping that everything will be a little bit more regular and normal going forwards. I'm actually really pleased with all the reading that happened. I read 9 books over the last 2 months, and considering how busy I've been, I feel like that's a great achievement. The rest of the year, it should be a lot calmer, and I should have a lot more time for doing things like making videos on time. So that is all I have to show you today, but let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.